Chapter 1. Waiting in Faith. The soft hum of the air conditioning buzzed in Toby's well-organized office. A shelf of ledgers, corporate plaques, and faith-based quotes stood behind her glass desk. Her perfectly coiled hair framed a face that was more serene than showy. At 32, Toby had seen promotions, awards, and accolades, but not love. She glanced at her phone. 6:25 p.m. Time for their weekly prayer call. "Lord," she whispered, "I don't want to settle. Please let my husband find me." As she dialed in, 3 other voices joined: Jane, Ada, and Ruth. They had formed a prayer circle 2 years ago, binding themselves in a promise. No compromise, no desperation, only divine timing. Today's prayer point is about discernment, Ada began. "Amen," Toby said, clutching her Bible. "We don't just want any man. We want the right one." Jane laughed lightly. "As long as he's rich, handsome, and madly in love with me, I won't complain." The group chuckled, but Toby's laugh was softer, thoughtful. She didn't want just a handsome face. She wanted a kind heart, a strong spirit, and a love grounded in God. She had waited this long. She could wait a little longer. She had no idea that her answer was about to walk through the doors of her office the next morning. Chapter 2. An Unexpected Visit. Morning sunlight filtered through the wide windows of Toby's office. She arrived early, as always, her navy blue blazer crisp, her steps purposeful. Her assistant, Nini, knocked lightly and entered with the day's schedule. "There's a new walk-in client requesting financial advice. His name is Mr. Larry Akambi. Very polite and very persistent." Toby smiled. "Slot him in. I have 30 minutes free before my next appointment." Nene left, and moments later, Larry stepped in. Tall, calm, well-groomed. His presence filled the room, not with arrogance, but with quiet confidence. Toby looked up from her tablet and met his eyes. "Good morning," she greeted professionally. "You must be Mr. Akanbi." "Yes, but please, just Larry," he said with a warm smile. "I heard this institution is one of the best, and I asked for the best advisor they had. They said your name." Toby raised an eyebrow, amused. "Flattery won't get you far with me, Mr. Larry." He chuckled. "Just honesty, I promise." They got to business. He had inherited his late father's company and wanted to invest wisely, restructure some assets, and build a lasting legacy. As she spoke, outlining possibilities, Larry found himself less focused on the numbers and more on her. Her poise, her grace, the way she thought before she spoke. Toby, too, felt something shift in the air, a stirring she hadn't felt in a long time. When the session ended, Larry hesitated. "I hope this isn't inappropriate," he began, "but I'd really like to take you to dinner, not as a client, but as a man who's genuinely interested." Toby blinked, surprised. "You don't waste time." "I don't believe in wasting what feels right." She studied him quietly. His sincerity disarmed her. "All right," she said slowly. "One dinner, that's all." His grin widened. "One dinner, for now." That night, she told her prayer group. "I've met someone," Toby said cautiously. The line went quiet. Then Jane spoke up. "Wow, that was fast. Are you sure he's serious?" "It's early, but something about him feels different." "Aren't you worried he might just be after your beauty or your position?" Ada added. "I've been praying," Toby said. "I'll take things slowly, with wisdom." But deep inside, she already knew this was the man she'd waited for. Chapter 3. The green-eyed circle Toby had never felt so seen. Every outing with Larry, every late-night conversation, felt like steps towards something sacred. He didn't just admire her beauty. He respected her mind, honored her values, and never rushed her. But not everyone celebrated her joy. At their next prayer meeting, Toby shared the updates gently, trying not to sound boastful. "Larry has been so intentional. He talks about marriage. He even asked to meet my pastor." Ruth smiled. "That's serious. I'm happy for you, Toby." But Jane's voice was clipped. "He asked to meet your pastor already? Isn't that a bit fast?" "It's been 3 months, Jane," Toby replied. keeping her tone kind. Still, some men say what they think we want to hear. Ada cleared her throat. Let's just pray for wisdom, like we always do. They did. But after the call ended, Jane sent a private message to Ada. Jane, are you seriously buying Toby's fairy tale? Men like Larry don't just fall from the sky. Ada, you think he's not genuine? Jane, I think Toby is lucky, but luck can change. Thea. Jealousy that Jane nursed quietly began to grow. She had secretly liked Larry since seeing his photo on Toby's status. She began plotting. A few days later, Jane visited Toby at work with an offer. There's a business mixer tomorrow evening. A lot of influential people will be there, including Bayo Adelaja. He's single, wealthy, and a strong believer. You should meet him. Toby laughed softly. Jane, I appreciate it, but I'm not shopping anymore. You've only known Larry for a few months. Bayo could be a better fit. Larry is a good man. I trust what I've seen and what I've prayed about. Jane's smile tightened. If you say so. That night, Jane reached out to Bayo herself. She won't come unless I convince her it's a godly business gathering. But once she meets you, you'll see. Toby's worth it. But the next evening, Toby declined the invitation altogether. Something in my spirit doesn't feel right, she told Ruth. Ruth agreed. Always trust that voice. Jane was furious when Bayo called her later. She didn't even show up. You made it sound like she was interested. She changed her mind, Jane said coolly. But don't worry, she won't be with that Larry guy for long. Over the next few weeks, Jane tried again. She sent Larry flirty messages from an anonymous number. She even posted subtle photos hinting at being in his neighborhood. But Larry remained true, devoted, and unshaken. Then the engagement happened. Toby said yes under a sunset sky, tears in her eyes and Larry's arms around her. Their engagement photo flooded social media. Friends congratulated them. Messages poured in. But Jane stared at the screen with her jaw clenched. She had one final thought. If I can't stop them before the wedding, maybe I'll try after. Chapter 4. Love Sealed. The wedding was the kind dreams were made of, elegant but simple, grand yet intimate. Ivory roses framed the altar where Toby walked down the aisle on her father's arm, her gown flowing like soft clouds around her. Larry stood waiting, heart pounding, eyes fixed on the woman who had captured his soul. As they exchanged vows, there wasn't a dry eye in the hall. Even Ruth sobbed quietly, but not Jane. She sat stiffly, clapping only when necessary, the smile on her face barely covering the storm within. They won't last, she whispered to herself. But to everyone else, Larry and Toby were a perfect match. They honeymooned in Greece and returned glowing, ready to start a new life. Toby moved into Larry's well-furnished duplex in a quiet estate. Every corner of the home reflected love, framed scriptures on the wall, photos from their travels, shared books on the nightstand. 3 months after the wedding, after the eye, Toby discovered she was pregnant. Larry was ecstatic. A son or daughter, it doesn't matter. I'm just glad I get to raise a child with you. The months passed in sweet anticipation. They painted the nursery together, read parenting books, and prayed nightly for wisdom. Their son, Nathaniel, arrived on a quiet Tuesday morning. He had Larry's eyes and Toby's dimples. Their joy was complete, but shadows began to creep in. Jane, who had kept her distance after the wedding, reappeared. She sent gifts for the baby, called occasionally, and even offered to babysit. Yimbiti, sorry for how I acted before, she told Toby one day. I was just shocked by how fast things moved. Toby, ever gracious, forgave her. It's okay, Jane. I'm glad we're good. But Larry wasn't so convinced. He noticed the way Jane looked at him, too long, too soft. He brushed it off, telling himself it was in his head. One weekend, Toby had to run a quick errand, just 30 minutes max. Nathaniel was napping, and Jane had randomly stopped by. Can you keep an eye on him while I rush to the pharmacy? Toby asked. Of course. Jane smiled too quickly. Anything for my godson. Toby left, and Jane's eyes turned toward Larry, who was working in the study, "Hi, stranger," she said as she entered the room uninvited. Larry looked up. "Jane, you startled me." She walked closer, slowly. "Do you ever think if things had been different? Maybe it could have been me?" "Jane, don't go there." "I'm serious, Larry. You're everything I prayed for. We could have had this life together." He stood, trying to maintain space. "Please don't disrespect Toby. Or yourself." But Jane stepped closer, trailing her fingers across his arm. "Tell me you don't feel something." Larry froze. For a moment the lines blurred. Confusion, flattery, weakness. And in that moment, Larry fell. The guilt hit him instantly. When Toby returned, Jane was already gone. Larry couldn't look her in the eye. Days passed. He became distant, cold. And then one evening, he said what Toby never expected to hear. "I need space." "Maybe you should go stay with your mom for a while." She blinked, stunned. "What happened, Larry?" I can't explain. I need to think." Toby packed in silence, her heart breaking with every folded item. She carried her son and left with dignity, unaware of the full betrayal. But something in her spirit whispered, "This wasn't your fault." Chapter 5. The snake in the garden, Toby sat by the window of her mother's home, rocking Nathaniel gently in her arms. Her heart ached, her mind replaying Larry's words on a loop. "Maybe you should go stay with your mom." No reason, no explanation, just cold distance where love once lived. Her mother, Mama Adesina, watched her daughter with quiet concern. "Reason?" she asked softly one evening. Toby shook her head. "None that made sense. Just space. Men don't change without cause." "Are you sure someone hasn't planted something between you?" Toby's eyes dimmed. "Only one person I can think of. Jane, but she's my friend." Mama Adesina said nothing, just sighed. At Larry's end, guilt consumed him. He avoided Jane's calls, couldn't sleep, could barely eat. He watched old videos of Toby laughing, of Nathaniel's soft cries, of their wedding. The house was empty, now clean, quiet, but hollow. He tried to justify what had happened, but the truth echoed louder than his excuses. He had betrayed the woman who loved him the most. And yet, he didn't know how to fix it. Shame was a thick fog. He didn't even know where to begin. Jane, meanwhile, was walking with pride. "She's out of the house," she bragged to Ada on a phone call. He told her to leave. Ada sounded hesitant. "Jane, what exactly happened between you two?" "Let's just say," I reminded him of what he could have had. "But he's married, Jane, with a child." Jane scoffed. "Marriage doesn't mean much if he's not satisfied." She took him too fast. "I'm just restoring balance." But Ruth had overheard the call. She had walked into Ada's apartment, just as the phone was on speaker. "What did she just say?" Ruth asked, eyes wide. Ada stammered. It wasn't clear." "No, I heard it. Jane is the reason Toby left." Ruth wasted no time. She called Toby immediately. "Toby, I have something you need to hear." Back at her mother's, Toby sat with the phone to her ear, Ruth's voice cutting through the silence like thunder. She admitted it. She seduced Larry, said you took him too fast, that she was just restoring balance. "Toby," she planned, "this." Toby was still, tears welling up in her eyes. "I trusted her," she whispered. "I let her hold my baby." Mama Adesina took the phone gently and spoke with Ruth, thanking her. Then she turned to her daughter. "You need to confront the truth, but with grace, not bitterness." Toby nodded. "I want to see Larry." That weekend she went back, not as a broken woman begging, but as a wife needing answers. She looked radiant despite the pain, holding Nathaniel calmly. Larry opened the door, breath catching at the sight of her. "I need to talk," she said simply. He let her in. They sat. And then, finally, he confessed. "I'm sorry, Toby. Jane came while you were out. She said things. I was foolish." Weak. I betrayed you, and I've hated myself every day since. Toby listened, not interrupting. Her heart was burning, but her face remained calm. Why didn't you tell me? She asked. Shame. Cowardice. I thought you'd never forgive me. I might not have, she said honestly, but you didn't even try. They sat in silence. Then Toby stood. I didn't come to fight. I just needed the truth. I'll pray and decide. She left with her son, leaving Larry to sit alone in his guilt and finally begin to feel the full weight of what he had done. Chapter 6. Broken, yet strong. Toby returned to her mother's house, her heart split between love and betrayal. She stared. At the ceiling late into the night, Nathaniel sleeping beside her. She'd always believed in second chances. But did Larry deserve one? Could she ever trust him again? And what about Jane? The next morning, Mama Adesina served her breakfast and said quietly, "When your father failed me, I almost left. But I asked God for direction, not for my pride, but for my peace." Toby sighed. "I want to forgive him, but I don't want to be foolish." Then don't rush. Healing takes time. Over the next few weeks, Toby stayed quiet, declining Larry's calls, ignoring Jane's messages, and focusing on her son. She returned to work, keeping her composure like a true professional, though inside she was learning how to stand while broken. Ruth checked in regularly. "I still believe your home can be restored," she said one evening, "but only if Larry fights for it." And fight he did. He began sending letters, handwritten ones, delivered with flowers and gifts for Nathaniel. Each one was filled with humility, deep remorse, and genuine love. Toby read them, then tucked them away. She wasn't ready. One Sunday morning, she went to church with Nathaniel. As she worshipped, tears spilled down her cheeks. "Lord, I waited. Years for a man like Larry. But I won't trade my peace for pain. Show me what to do." That night, she dreamed of a broken mirror being mended. Not replaced, but restored with gold between the cracks. When she woke up, her heart was calm. The next weekend, Larry came to her mother's house. He knelt at the door in front of Toby, her mother, and Nathaniel. "I don't expect to be forgiven today, but I'll keep showing up. You're my wife. I broke us, but I want to fix it, whatever it takes." Toby looked at him, tears in her eyes. "It's not just about saying sorry. You have to rebuild trust. Earn it." "I will," he said, voice trembling. Mama Adesina nodded. "Then begin as a man should, by closing the door that let the snake in." The very next day, Larry confronted Jane. He met her at a quiet cafe, his face unreadable. "Don't smile," he said firmly as she approached. Jane blinked, confused. "Larry, I came to tell you never to contact me or my wife again. What you did was wicked. I let you in for a moment, and I'll regret it for the rest of my life." Her eyes narrowed. "So now you're blaming me?" "No. I blame myself for letting you near my home, but I won't make that mistake again." He stood up and walked away, leaving Jane sitting there, her power gone, her schemes unraveling. Chapter 7. The Return. Home 2 months had passed since Toby left Larry's house. In that time, she had rebuilt herself quietly, spiritually, emotionally, and mentally. Her mornings were filled with prayers and lullabies. Her evenings were wrapped in peace and reflection. Larry, on the other hand, remained consistent. He attended marriage counseling alone. He joined a men's fellowship at church. He sent updates about his progress, not as pressure, but as proof of change. Ruth remained a quiet bridge between them. "He's serious, Toby," she told her. "He's not the same man. He knows what he almost lost." Still, Toby took her time. One evening, after a long prayer walk, she made a decision. That weekend, Larry was surprised to see her car pulling into the driveway. She stepped out, holding Nathaniel, her eyes steady. "I didn't come to stay," she said. "I came to talk." Inside, the house looked different. Cleaner, brighter. There was a framed photo of their wedding on the mantel and a small Bible open on the side table. "You've changed," she said slowly. "I had to. Losing you was like losing my lungs. I couldn't breathe without you. But I didn't want to beg my way back. I wanted to become worthy again." Toby looked into his eyes, searching for signs of pretense. There were none. "I don't know if we can ever go back to what we had," she whispered. "Then let's build something better," he replied. That night, Toby didn't stay over, but she left Nathaniel with Larry for the first time since leaving. Let him spend time with his father, she told her mother. They need to bond. Over the next few weeks, they started dating again, not as newlyweds, but as renewed partners. They talked, laughed, cried. They went on family outings. Larry came to her office with lunch like he used to. He listened more, loved deeper, and slowly the trust returned. Then, one Sunday morning, Larry stood before the congregation at church. Toby watched from the back. "I sinned against my wife. I failed God, but he gave me another chance, and I'll spend my life making it right." The church stood in silence. Then the pastor embraced him, and people clapped, not for perfection, but for redemption. Toby wept quietly in her seat. 2 weeks later, she returned home. This time not with heartbreak, but with healing. Larry met her at the door, kneeling. "Welcome home, my queen." She smiled, holding Nathaniel on one arm and Larry's hand with the other. Chapter 8. Beauty. After Ash's life at home took on a new rhythm, not the same as before, but better, deeper, more intentional. Toby moved back into the house not just as Larry's wife, but as a woman who had walked through fire and returned with grace. The cracks in their relationship hadn't disappeared, but they had been filled with honesty, prayer, and perseverance. Larry was softer now, more patient. He washed Nathaniel's bottles, changed diapers, and gave Toby foot rubs after long days. He kept a journal of prayers for her, often reading them aloud at night. One evening, Toby found him kneeling beside their bed, praying in whispers. "Thank you for not letting me destroy the best thing that ever happened to me. Thank you for Toby's heart." She stood quietly behind him, tears falling down her cheeks. She had no words, only gratitude. One Sunday morning, their pastor announced a marriage seminar and invited couples to share their testimonies. Larry squeezed Toby's hand. "Should we?" She hesitated. "It's still fresh. That's why it matters." They agreed. On the day of the seminar, the hall was filled with couples, young and old, engaged and married. When Larry and Toby stepped up to the microphone, the room hushed. Larry spoke first. "I was the kind of man who prayed for a good wife, then didn't know how to protect her. I let the enemy in through pride and weakness. But God didn't throw us away. He rebuilt us." Toby took a breath and continued. "Forgiveness isn't easy, but love covers. And sometimes strength looks like walking away until someone learns to value you again. I didn't come back because I was weak. I came back because he changed." The room erupted in applause. Tears flowed freely. Their story became a light to many. Meanwhile, Jane's world grew quieter. After Larry's public rejection and the rumors that followed, many of her acquaintances kept their distance. Her circle of friends shrank quickly. She tried reaching out to Ada and Ruth, but they didn't respond. Even Bayo, who once admired her charm, no longer returned her calls. One day, she sat alone in her flat, scrolling through photos of Toby's family on social media. Smiling, laughing, healing, she closed the app and whispered to herself, "I lost." But what she didn't know was that sometimes loss is a lesson, and healing begins when you face the truth. Back in Toby and Larry's home, the sun filtered through cream curtains one peaceful morning. Nathaniel took his first steps. Toby screamed. In joy, Larry scooped him up, and together they laughed, cried, and held each other close. Their home wasn't perfect, but it was whole, restored, redeemed, and above all, rooted in love. Chapter 9. The Full Circle. 1 year after the storm, Toby stood before a full church hall, this time not in tears, but in testimony. It was the annual Women of Grace conference, and she had been invited as a guest speaker. Her topic? When Love is Tested. She wore a flowing emerald gown, her hair pinned neatly, Nathaniel on her hip and Larry in the front row, beaming with pride. I used to think love was only about butterflies and roses, she began. But real love, covenant love, gets tested in ways you never imagine, and when that happens, you either break or bend. She told the audience about the deception, the betrayal, the moment Larry asked her to leave, the tears, the prayers, the slow, painful climb back to healing. But you know what? She said, voice steady. It made me stronger. It made us stronger. And I learned that forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means trusting God enough to let Him heal what we can't fix on our own. The room was silent, many women wiping their eyes. Larry stood with Nathaniel and joined her on stage. Together they embraced. The hall burst into a standing ovation, not for perfection, but for a love that had been tested by fire and refined like gold. After the conference, women lined up to speak with her. Some broken, some searching, all inspired. You gave me hope, one whispered. I was going to file for divorce. But now I want to fight for us, another said. Toby smiled warmly, praying silently for each one. Back home that evening, Larry prepared dinner, a simple bowl of jollof rice, and grilled fish. They ate under soft music and candlelight, Nathaniel giggling as he mashed his food with his tiny fingers. Later, after putting him to bed, they sat on the couch, wrapped in a cozy throw. Do you ever think about how far we've come? Larry asked. Every day, she replied. I don't take peace for granted. He looked into her eyes. You're the best decision I ever made, even when I didn't deserve you. She leaned in. We both made mistakes, but we made it. They kissed, slow, tender, sure. Outside, the night was calm. Inside, their hearts were at rest. Epilogue months later, Toby launched a relationship mentoring platform for young women, the Waiting Room, a space for women praying, growing, and learning to wait well, just as she once did. And beside her, always, was Larry, her husband, her friend, her reminder that even after pain, joy can still return. Not as before, but better, because love, when tested and survived, always comes back stronger. The end.